Hey there, everybody. This is Aaron Dukette with U.S. Term Limits. I'm the state director for Kentucky and West Virginia. So you're going to be seeing me popping up in the state pages for our U.S. Term Limits organization in those two states. I wanted to do a quick check-in, see on our progress in these two states and exciting things that are going on, and kind of invite anyone that's viewing here into the fold as a volunteer to get involved in the effort. Again, my name is Aaron Dukette. I'm the state director for U.S. term limits for Kentucky and for West Virginia. We have a lot of activity going on here. As you may well know, congressional term limits is a very, very popular idea among voters. There is nationwide 82% support for the issue of congressional term limits, which, try to think of another issue today in today's very divided world in which we are that united on it. I fail to think of anything really. In particular, in this area of the country, in West Virginia, that polling number is actually 83%, and in Kentucky it's 84%. So there's actually higher than average sentiment for term limits in our region here. I wanted to kind of go over some reasons. This is what I call preaching to the crier. Most people watching this page here are for term limits, and I want to just throw out some reasons. Why do we need congressional term limits? What's the necessary reason for that? Well, let's look at some things. Congress has approximately a 90% on average re-election rate, which is pretty high and makes a real challenge very, 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 very challenging. Consistently the approval rating of Congress hovers around 10, 12%. So there's kind of an inversion of, why are, the American people, approving of Congress at about 10%, yet about 90% they get reelected. Well, something's up with the system. The system is rigged, kind of against the will of the people. And so what term limits will really do is provide for new voices that can actually more accurately reflect what the people are thinking and what they want. Well, the great thing with term limits is that you mandate the vacating office every so often. So no matter how popular any given politician might be, at some point that seat will be vacated. And I like to think of it as returned to the electorate, returned to the people who really own that seat. It is their encapsulation of sovereignty in that seat. And then we have open seat elections with term limits. And what that really does is actually it provides a much more wide open process where many more people are encouraged to run because there's more of a possibility of defeating not only maybe defeating an incumbent, but also having an open seat election. You're going to have more opportunity to win. So it means more competition in elections. And it means no new voices that can come out there and differentiate themselves in a sea of new people. So there's also some correlation, as we've seen in some of the states, of fiscal responsibility with the imposition of term limits. If you look at the congressional level, the federal level, we have I think might be coming up on $23 trillion national debt, and it's not going down anytime soon. It seems like Congress has no problem sort of maxing out the credit card and then just extending the credit line on us. And if you look at the American people, we don't want this to happen, and yet it continues. And so, with term limits, we have more opportunity to clear out some of those really fiscally irresponsible people and get some new folks in that are going to manage our tax dollars better and not sink our country into debt and jeopardizing our future as a country in the process. Another aspect is corruption. Think about the influence of lobbyists. Their currency, the value that they bring is really measured in their relationships with congressmen and with senators. Think of Jack Abramoff. He's actually come out and said, yeah, the idea of term limits terrified me as a lobbyist. Because I wanted to be able to basically purchase my people. And if I had to keep starting over every so many years, well, that frustrates my process and it drives down my value. And so this is actually kind of an anti-lobbyist measure that kind of, protects the seat against really, things that border on and cross the line of bribery. There's also a lack of choices presently at the ballot box. How many times have you gone to the ballot box and you look down who's available and you kind of feel like, well, I'm forced to vote for this person even though I'm not wild about them. The lesser of two evils thing. Where you really have an epidemic of uncontested and undercontested races across this country, and it's going to be much healthier for our country's process to have more open seat elections, because it means there's going to be more contest and real competition for the hearts and minds of the people. So there's additional things. There's the franking privilege, where actually millions of taxpayer dollars are spent effectively, for campaigning, under the guise of it being for the purpose of, reaching out to constituents. That is a gigantic advantage over any challenger. And so there's really just kind of a seniority system that arises without term limits, and has arose, as we see here, that really kind of just rewards longevity and fundraising and just kind of being around for decades, rather than rewarding competency and vision and the ability to lead others. So to give an idea of our history with U.S. term limits, U.S. term limits is founded in 1992, and first was really focused on trying to push for state and federal term limits back then. Well, as several of the states actually passed bills that would actually term limit their own people in the state legislature, but also place term limits for their delegations to Congress. So they had more sort of a local decision-making power over what the term limits would be in Kentucky versus Pennsylvania or Hawaii. Several states actually passed law, but in 1995 there was a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was U.S. term limits versus Thornton, and what this meant was that only a constitutional amendment could be passed to put term limits on Congress. And so this is actually a 5-4 decision, and it ruled all of the progress that had been made in the states moot. And so they had to start over. And so where do we get term limits? Well, we have to turn to the provision that's in the Constitution that tells us how we can amend the Constitution. And that is Article 5. In Article 5, we're told, how amendments can be proposed and ratified to the Constitution. In either case, ratification just means that 3/4 of the state legislatures can take any proposal and have to pass that. And once 3/4 of the legislatures have passed that, today that's 38 states, then we have a new amendment to the Constitution and it takes effect. The difference lies in the method of proposal. Everyone's kind of familiar with the process of Congress. Congress, 2/3 of both chambers of Congress propose an amendment and it passes through, and then it goes to the states for ratification. What there also is in Article 5 is an avenue by which the state legislatures, when 2/3 of them apply for an Article 5 convention, can come together and propose term limits on Congress or on whatever the issue is in the call. So in our case, that's term limits on Congress. This is exactly why that provision was put into Article 5 of the Constitution by the framers. Exactly why. Why? Well, because asking Congress to term limit themselves is kind of like asking turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. It's just not going to happen. Why would they check their own power? It is very much against human nature. And so, our framers in their wisdom put this provision in there so that another set of legislative bodies could check the power of the legislative bodies of Congress when the need was there. And I tell you right now, we're here. The term limits is that issue. We really need term limits on Congress, and Congress is not going to act to check that power. And so we need to be able to use the only tool that's available in the Constitution to make that happen, and that is under Article 5. And so that's what we're after. We are filed in the state of West Virginia. The bill number is HCR 61. And in Kentucky, we are building up support and looking to file as well for 2020. I'll give you a little update on the state of Kentucky, where we stand. We have several pledge signers that have been signed on, and we're building up some pressure. We have, this is in Kentucky, kind of the land where Mitch McConnell comes from. He is a very famous opponent of term limits. And he believes, that we need professional career politicians that are there for 30, even 40 years to do things right. Well, that professional, very experienced Congress has brought us to the mess of the $23 trillion that we mentioned earlier. This guy, he's been true to his word all of his career. If you dig it up, you can actually find in the 90s, he actually proposed an amendment to repeal the 22nd Amendment for term limits on the presidency. As wildly popular as congressional term limits is, it's almost universally popular that we have term limits on the presidency because no one man should have that much power for that long a time. And so, this is a real issue and something we need to kind of take the task here. We need a state legislature in Kentucky to step up and try to work on making Congress healthier. So we need to do that through term limits. I want to mention too, I have an assistant of mine, Lewis, who is going to actually drop a link in the comments here on the Kentucky page. And it's you can look it up and it's actually you can look up where your state legislators stand on our resolution. Do they support it? Have they signed a pledge to support it? Are they opposed, or have they not yet given an indication? You can find out. Lewis is going to post that in the state page for Kentucky, as well as in the West Virginia page. There's another link he'll show you there too. So wherever you are in those two states, you can look it up. You can find out where your state legislators stand. And you can also send them, while you're at it, you can send them an email letting them know where you want them to stand, which is in favor of this congressional term limits bill. And so I'd like to draw your attention to that and take a look. If you miss it in the comments, it's also at termlimits.com. Go under current actions and you'll find it all in there. And you can find out also how you can get involved to volunteer. Switching over to West Virginia, to give you an idea of where we stand there, we came in for the first time in 2019 with the resolution. It was filed as HCR 61, House Concurrent Resolution 61. It was passed by the House Judiciary Committee by a 2-vote margin, and then passed the House as well pretty comfortably, and passed on over to the Senate. We came right up to the last day of session. We had the votes to pass and make West Virginia another state that is called for this term limits convention. Unfortunately, it was filibustered by Senator Mike Romano and brought up right into the end of session, and thereby killing the bill without an honest up-down vote. We believe that if you oppose the bill, then vote up, down, and don't just kill the opportunity for that process to happen. And so we're going to be back in 2020. We had it in the bag, but didn't quite get there. So we're going to be back in January. We'll be back on the ground there in Charleston. So I want to draw your attention to that action item that Lewis is going to put in there, and check out, where do my state legislators stand on this issue? You can see in the case of the House, you can see how they voted. And in the case of your senators, you can find out where they stand, what have they mentioned here to us, and send your message and tell them, if you support this, I support you. I want to make this happen. Please make it happen. I also want to just kind of put a call out there. Our volunteer teams, both in West Virginia and in Kentucky, are active and busy this month. We're working on a couple different things this month. We're sending out handwritten letters to state legislators and actually sending them off to their home addresses. These are something that are really read a lot by legislators. If you take the time to actually handwrite a letter, just to kind of mean something a little more powerfully than an email does. And so if that's something you'll be interested in doing, I invite you to reach out in the comments section, or you can go to termlimits.com and click on the volunteer tab, and we'll be right in touch with you. Other things we're up to, making phone calls, just calling into the legislator and leaving a message even, and saying, hey, there's this bill for allowing the states to propose term limits on Congress. I want you to back up the U.S. term limits resolution, and that can make an impact. For every call that's made, the legislator kind of thinks, well, there must be 9 others in the district that feel the same way. And so the more calls we get in, the better. We're also have some volunteers writing letters to the editor in your local papers in support of that resolution and bring attention to the issue. That's something you can do too. So go up on the website, sign up and volunteer. We'll get you involved in any kind of way that you're interested. And as far as what's coming down the pike here in West Virginia, we will be showing up in the Capitol. We'll be there for the interim meetings. A colleague of mine and I will be talking with legislators later this month. and bringing more, into the fold and behind this movement. And we also kind of have the session coming right up. It's coming right around the corner, right after Christmas and New Year, and we'll be there. And just a little hint of what's to come for West Virginians. If you're interested, we have a Capitol Day that's going to be happening on Friday, January 17th. So if that's something that you would like to do, show up at the Capitol and actually talk to state legislators with us, come on over. Sign up to volunteer on the website and drop a line in the comments. We'll reach out to you. And we'd love to have you come with us. It makes a huge impact when folks take time to actually come to the Capitol. And I know it's a really huge state, so that's not feasible for everybody, but it makes a huge impact if you can. So, just give me a little say the date. Again, that's Friday, January 17th, coming up down the pike. So keep that eye open. We'll be giving updates about that too. And once again, I just want to draw your attention to let's sign up to volunteer. We need more volunteers, people being engaged in this to make this happen. We cannot get it passed. We cannot get it done without pressure from voters like yourselves. That's what you're here, to do in our democratic republic. We're here to make this happen. And so legislators' job is to listen to you. So I invite you to join us. I invite you to check out termlimits.com. Reach out to us. You're welcome to email me. My name is Aaron Dukette, and my email address is adukette@termlimits.com. And I really appreciate you. Thanks so much, and we will be talking soon.